Hi, I'm Josh, your English learning guide, and this is English Hacks. In the pronunciation and ear training course today, we are looking at the ah sound, as in the word cat. Now, this sound is probably going to be a bit difficult because many languages, as I mentioned before, have a sound right here or somewhere in there where it's more in the middle of the mouth going front to back. And that sounds usually more like ah, ah, ah. Where in English we have ah, back here we have ah, but we do not have this middle sound. That can cause a big problem, and we won't go into all the details of why, but if you want to be understood clearly, this is a very, very critically important sound that you have to at least get good at producing. And as I mentioned before, there may be difficulty producing the difference or hearing the difference between the eh sound that we talked about before and the ah sound that we're talking about now. The IPA symbol is this weird A-E combination thing, which you can see on the chart. Again, the link to download that is in the description below. So how do we make this sound? Well, as we can see, the sound is in the front of the mouth. So you are using the front part of your tongue. Okay, not the middle part, not the back part, the front part. And we also see, remember, this is the top and this is the bottom of your mouth open. We talked about with the eh sound, the third sound right here, that the mouth only partially opens. So if this is your top teeth and the top of your mouth would open partially. Eh, e, eh. It opens a little bit because it's in the middle going from top to bottom. We're in this middle section. But for this sound, you really have to open your mouth more. And this is a common part of the problem for many English learners, okay? Especially if you speak a language where you don't tend to open your mouth very much. For example, I have had many Russian students, and this is usually a problem because from what they have told me and from what I have noticed, Russian speakers don't tend to open their mouths very much when speaking Russian, where English, especially American English, is a very open mouth language. Of course, E and I, your mouth is pretty closed, so not all the sounds, but definitely down here, we don't want this. This is one of the problems that will make you sound more like eh, is if your mouth is here, if it's not open enough. And if your language has this eh sound, the third sound, or something similar to it, because you're not used to opening down here, you might open, say, this far when you try to say the ah sound, or even when you try to say the eh sound, because in your language there might not really be much difference with all that extra space since you don't have a sound here. But in English, if you do that, a native speaker who is listening to you will probably not be able to tell if you're saying eh or ah. So it is very, very important that you open your mouth very wide. Now, you're not trying to open the mouth as wide as possible. Okay, it's not, right? You're not trying to fit a big burger into your mouth or something. It doesn't have to be that much. It might be a little uncomfortable at first because you might not be used to opening that much, but you probably have a sound around here, and this is about how much you want to open your mouth. So you already have that opening, right? But you just want to move the sound from here, or wherever your sound might be in here for ah, and move it forward so you're using the front part of the tongue, not the middle part of the tongue. Okay, that's all you have to do, just move it forward. Now, how this feels to me when I say ah, ah, my tongue isn't just flat, right? Because that's very easy to let it go into the ah. So you want to maybe almost have sort of a curve. So if we say, Let's say, for example, so this is your mouth, just like here. And let's say your tongue is sort of more like that. So instead of being flat, it has a little bit of a curve to it almost. There might even be a little dip here. But the point is, it doesn't feel straight. So, ah, ah. Okay, not ah or ah, ah, ah. In real speech, you'll notice I'm sort of pulling the sides of my mouth out, just like for e, ah, ah. The only difference is that my mouth is more open, so it creates this sort of shape like this. In real life, you don't necessarily have to open that much, right? If I say cat, 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 okay, it doesn't seem as exaggerated as ah, ah. But practice it very open and try to get that little curve so it's not flat. Because if you practice it this way, when you're actually speaking, you will naturally sort of relax a little bit because you're not thinking about it, and you'll get closer to that actual sound. And if you do happen to say it a little too open, it just sounds like you're saying the sound very clearly, right? It's a cat, it's a cat. So we want your mouth to be down here, okay? Open that mouth nice and wide, not as wide as possible, but very, very wide, okay? Very open, ah, ah, and use the front part of the tongue. So let's look at some example words here. So we have cat, like we saw. That can be kind of difficult, starting in that K position for k, k, and then shifting all the way to the front for ah, ka, ka. You'll almost feel like your tongue kind of has to go like this a little bit. It's not just release and move forward. You sort of slide it, ka, ka. So that can be a difficult combination. But man, that's not too bad. We have Remember, with the M sound, it's very easy to open too much, but with this sound, we want it very open. So make sure you don't open too little, right? Because then it might sound like men. Okay, that would be here. And we're gonna talk more about comparing those in the next video. Let that M open nice and wide, ma, ma. But make sure you get that tongue forward, not ma, ma, man. Okay, we also have, for example, sat. So the past tense of sit, which was this sound here, S-I-T, sit. This is sat, which is also the first syllable or first part of the word Saturday. Saturday. Sunday, Saturday, the weekend. We also have pass, ass. Now, of course, if you take away that P, you get a bad word. Yeah, it's a curse word. It's your butt, your bottom. But with the P, pass, pass. Okay, we want that P to be nice and strong, just like the M, but you're gonna push out, pass. We have the word ask. Now notice this is spelled with two S's. It's just one S sound, it's just spelling. So this S and this S sound the same, there's no difference, okay? Ask. We can say ran, which is the past tense of the verb run, to run, right? R-U-N. We have the word tap. So tap is, that's tap, right? If you're on your phone, you might tap this video, right? Or you can tap the like button. So those are some examples that we have. We have many, many words with this sound. Now, I forgot to mention this, I erased all of those, but as you probably noticed, all of them were just spelled with the letter A, and there was no extra vowel at the end. That is definitely the most common way to spell this sound. It's not the only way, of course, there are always exceptions. But if you see a word that has just the letter A, it is almost guaranteed that it will be pronounced ah, ah. Okay, very, very important, especially when we talk about the sound ah. We'll see why that's so important, because these two are commonly written using the letter A, but this one back here, often has a W, a silent W, to mark that it's not a. And there are other ways to spell this sound. It's a little more complicated in the spelling pattern, but here, just the letter A is the most common way to spell this sound. Now, if there is a silent E, remember, the reason why we tend to have silent E's at the end of words is because that will usually change the previous vowel. Not always, of course, there are exceptions with that too. When we have a, right, if I say cat, well, if I add an E to the end of this, we get the name, female name, Kate. And this A, name of the letter A, which is a diphthong, two vowel sounds put together. We'll talk about that later in the course. But instead of a pure single vowel sound, we get a, cat, Kate. Or if I say man, this will become main, which is pronounced just like this word. This is a different spelling, main. Don't worry about that. But this word mane is, think of the hair on the back of a horse's neck or around a lion's neck. That is called a mane. We have the name Sam, S-A-M. If you add an E to the end of that, you get the word same. Okay, notice a. It might not always change to A, but when we're talking about the a sound and we add the silent E, that's a very, very common thing that happens. Okay, so now you know, you got an extra bonus in this video. Homework. Okay, we have the normal homework plus something special. So number 1, we're going to have an a recording. Number 2, we have a listening dictation. So the listening dictation, I want you to, number 1, so A, write what you hear. I know that looks really ugly, but write what you hear. You're already doing that. So for part B, what I want you to do is mark the syllables in this listening dictation from what you wrote. Mark the syllables and the intonation. Don't worry about the stress. We're not going to worry about if a word or a syllable is stressed or unstressed. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. First, we're going to focus more on the syllables. So for example, if you have the word over, this is 2 syllables. Over, over. Remember, a syllable is usually based around a vowel in most cases. If you want to review what a syllable is and some of that related information, I will go ahead and link to that video earlier in the course, in the introduction, that talks about those important concepts. For the intonation, all you have to do is, at the end of the sentence, does it go down? Does it go up? That's it. Remember, yes or no questions go up with a question tone. Simple statements and WH questions go down. They fall off the cliff at the end. That's all you have to do. Just mark up or down for the intonation. We are going to do this for every listening dictation from now on. Okay, you're going to write what you hear. You're going to mark the syllables and the intonation for the sentence. Okay, don't worry about the stress yet. Now there's one more thing I want you to do here, C, which is mark content or function. Okay, you can just write like a C or an F if you want. And what you're going to do here for every word that you write, you're going to say, okay, is it a content word? Is it a function word? So you're going to try to identify that. This is going to help you in the short term for now. And what we really want to do is train your ears, but for now, we're going to use this to help us. So remember, a content word is a noun, a verb, an adjective, which is usually ADJ in the dictionary, adjective, or adverb. If you're not sure what those are, you can go look them up, or I think I talked about them briefly in the introduction video. If it's not these types of words, you don't have to mark if it's a noun specifically. You can just put a C, it's content, that's fine. But if it's not one of these types of words, then it's probably a function word. Okay, remember, this isn't about getting it right. So don't worry too much about being correct. So just do your best, think about it, and if you're wrong, you're wrong. Oh well, we will see the answer and learn from it. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Thank you guys so very much for watching another English Hacks video, and I'll see you in the next one.